What's your favorite number? What? 5? Heard 5 in there. You've got 4 back in the back there. All right. You know. You know. Well, if you ask people their favorite number, I mean, like we did, you're going to get a variety of answers. The Popular Mechanics website team chose 4, 2, and 36, and 5,040, which is the anti-prime number. There are more factors in the 5,040 than just about any other number. But if you ask enough people, you start to see which numbers emerge as a consensus as to which is the favorite across the population. A British math blogger. Now, that's a fascinating thing to me. There's a math blogger. At any rate, his name was Alex Bellos, and he did this. He began to poll the population, and over 44,000 people responded from around the world to his website, and he got an answer that the world's favorite number is 7. Now, apparently, Bellos didn't have a favorite number, but as was written up in the magazine, British magazine Nautilus, he began asking people about that favorite number and created the website, favoritenumber.com. And then more than 44,000 people voted for the number that they liked best. And here's what he discovered. The third most popular number was, it's kind of funny, the third most popular number. Yeah, all right, y'all, some of you that, I saw your hair fly back on some of that. But anyway, was 8. The third most popular number is 8. And a couple of folks wrote the reason why. One says in Japan, 8 is a lucky number because the Japanese character for 8 means an opening to the future, and because of its symmetrical and round shape, and because it always has given me a sense of friendliness and warmth. Unlike, for example, 9, which looks bossy, or 6, which appears to be a bit submissive. Okay. Number 2 on the list is 3. And the response, or a couple of them, were because it's curly, but not pretentious curly like 8. And another person from China said, and 3 means alive. But the world's favorite number, as it turns out, is 7. As for why, Bello explained that it's basically because of our desire to be outliers when it comes to math, I suppose. As for why numbers 0 through 5 are unpopular, Bello said it's because those numbers are approximations more than, say, 7. When we say 100, for example, it doesn't usually mean exactly 100. We mean around 100. And so 100 seems vague. And why would you have something so vague as your favorite number? And it seems we like our numbers to be somewhat unique, which may be why prime numbers are really popular. You know what a prime number is? Yeah, okay. They're not divisible by any number other than 1, for those of you who been out of high school for more than a week or two. Bellos' research actually came out in 2014, but it's been popular over the internet for a long time now because discussing your favorite number, it turns out, is incredibly fascinating. Dinner parties are arranged around this subject to discuss favorite numbers. That's a joke for those of you who are keeping notes. And it's also interesting that 13 is not as unpopular as you might think. It actually ranked as the number 6th most popular or favorite number. I found a variety of thoughts and research on popular numbers, and it's pretty fascinating. But I did notice one number that was conspicuously absent from a lot of that conversation. Thank you, Taylor, the number 6. I owe Taylor a donut. That was just about as perfect as I could have asked, this morning. And today, though, as we look at this fascinating and profound miracle, the first miracle performed by Jesus, this turning the water into wine at Cana, his first recorded miracle, it was a sign of his divine nature, even maybe in his words a little before time, but it gave us a glimpse into his mission to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. And so today I wanted to focus a little bit on that seemingly insignificant yet important detail in the story, and that is those 6 stone water jars. Now, why 6? Why does this insignificant little number, plain old ordinary 6, what does it teach us about God's power, God's purpose, and plans for our lives? The number 6 might seem ordinary at first. But it does have some interesting and uncommon properties across mathematics and science and even culture. It is the imperfect, perfect number. It's an almost perfect number in that it's equal to the sum of its predecessors, 1, 2, and 3. If you add those together, what do you get? You get 6. If you multiply 1, 2, and 3, what do you get? Some of you are struggling with that one. Get your phone out. But it's one short of the biblical number for completeness or perfection, which of course is 7. In our tradition, 6 is used oftentimes, or multiples of 6 is used oftentimes in the Scripture. And as we remember that we were created, humanity created on the 6th day, but that was not complete until the 7th day of rest. Now, it's a triangular number. You can arrange dots, 6 dots, in about every kind of triangle that you want. It's the smallest product of those two distinct prime numbers, 2 and 3. Carbon, the basis of all known life, has 6 protons in its nucleus. It has an atomic number of 6. And those things in nature and God's creation that are pretty fascinating, like snowflakes and honeycombs, have 6 sides. Thank you, those of you who are still with me. It's interesting. It has some properties that are interesting. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. Now I have another question. Have you ever made homemade wine? Some of you have. I have. I know I'm kind of shifting gears here, but stay with me, and we may come back around. I plan to anyway. But winemaking is a process that transforms grapes into wine, and there's really a simple step-by-step process that it goes through. And guess how many basic steps there are to making wine? Thank you so much. The first one is harvesting. That's when you pick the grapes. Some of you have been to wineries and seen they have these massive machines. Ken and I were talking about Germany before service, and we saw some folks. They're actually still picking grapes by hand over in Germany in the wine region. And so the grapes are picked. That's step 1. And the ripeness of the grapes affects what kind of wine and maybe the quality of the wine. And on personal note, you can also use Welch's concentrated grape juice. It works just fine. Then the step 2 is the crushing and the pressing, where you squeeze all the juice out of the wine. And if you want red wine, you leave the skins in that pressing process. If you don't, then you just take the juice. Step 3 is the fermentation, where it's placed in a container and you add yeast, or maybe there's natural yeast, and then eventually the grape starts fermenting and it turns that sugar into alcohol. Might take a few days to a few weeks. Make sure that you have a high-quality balloon on your bottle if you're making homemade wine, because if you have a low-quality birthday balloon, it will burst, and that's not good. And so just, if you're taking notes again, keep that in mind. But that fermentation, after that comes the aging process, where the wine is aged to develop flavors. It's pretty fascinating. I'm sure most of you have been to wineries and seen some of that. It's really a fascinating process that it goes through. Then there's the filtering or the clarifying, where the impurities are taken out and the wine becomes clear and smooth. And then once it's ready, of course, it goes into bottles. 6 steps. It sounds relatively simple, but if the quality of the wine that you're making is not important, it's pretty easy. That was my experience. But if you're concerned about quality, it's not that easy. It's you have to work through those steps. Pretty important. But if you follow all those steps, those 6 steps, you won't do anything. You won't have anything unless you start with some water or juice. John 2:6 says, "Now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. These jars were used for ceremonial washing. The water in them was clean. They were stone jars, carved out of stone. They were not made with pottery. As you know, pottery will essentially give off, little particles. These were stone jars. So it was pure water in there. And so we got 6 stone water jars. As you can imagine, carved out of stone. These are clumsy things, hard to move around, probably a bit dense. but they were useful. They were filled with water, which water in itself is pretty simple, but when you think about it, water is filled with possibilities. After all, water can become a lot of things. I wonder sometimes if that's how the Lord views us, a bit clumsy, prone to mistakes and missteps, sometimes really stubborn and hard-hearted and even stiff-necked, but really useful when we're filled with the right stuff. I'm sure every one of us here, and even those watching online, have at one time or another experienced the frustration of looking and looking and looking for something only to realize it was right in front of us the whole time. How many of you have walked around looking for your glasses when they were on your forehead? You don't need to raise your hand for that. Or your phone goes missing and you call your spouse to see if they've seen it and you realize you're talking on it. Let me tell you, that's how it was with this morning's message for me. You see, I was, and I hope you know this, I take very seriously my responsibility to bring you a message every week that will hopefully somehow inspire or convict or enlighten or encourage or bring joy or maybe all the above. And on rare occasions, I think maybe I hit a home run. Most of the time, I'm happy if I think maybe I hit a bunt single. But there are certainly times when I'm pretty sure I strike out. But as they say in baseball, batting .300 to get you in the Hall of Fame. So I keep trying. As I began to study this text, I thought surely there was a powerful and creative angle to this number 6. And so I began to think and pray about how to bring that to life, how to make it something. And consequently, now you know more about favorite numbers than you ever needed to know. Oh well. And then when I learned that there were 6 basic steps to winemaking, I thought, aha, that's where it is. And try as I might, I didn't find any inspiration. I didn't find anything, nothing except maybe the notion that I might make some more homemade wine one day soon. Wasn't there. And so I let it rest for a couple of days. Translated, I let it rest for a week. Maybe hoping that an idea or an insight or something would ferment. You see where I'm going there? And begin to rise a little bit. Maybe it would begin to come alive. 6, the number 6 stone jars. 6 ordinary household things. And I began to think about you and I. And we're ordinary, right? Well, some of you are maybe a bit unordinary. I mean, extraordinary. But what if you and I are stone water jars? What if we're the stone water jars in that story? And we've been filled with possibilities. What if we're brimming with potential? Is it possible that we can be turned into fine wine? And I look back at those 6 steps of winemaking and I thought, what are 6 things that are ordinary that could turn extraordinary, even miraculous, that are in us if we give them completely to the Lord? What are 6 things? Fortunately, I found most of them right where we left off over the past few weeks in Advent and Epiphany. Those 6 things, 1 being hope, 2 being joy, 3 being peace, 4 being love, 5 being epiphany or realization, and then 1 extra to round out the 6, vision. We all have those qualities in our lives, or at least we have the possibility of having those qualities in our lives. They're ordinary qualities. We all experience some of that, but those things could turn miraculous, if we allow, if we ask. Water jar number 1, hope. I mean, we all hope for this and that. Things like sunny days, warmer temperatures, lower gas prices. Yeah, we hope for things all the time. What if we began to earnestly hope for peace in our world, for solutions to problems that are bigger than ourselves? Water jar number 2, joy. What if we practiced joy beyond just smiling to ourselves and instead actually told people around us why we were joyful? what the reason for our joy was, why we can smile even when things aren't fantastic. Water jar number 3, peace. What if we actively sought peace in our relationships and attitudes, looking beyond differences of opinion on societal or political issues, and allowed ourselves to just be above the conflict, to be peacemakers, and to do that on purpose. Water jar number 4, love. What if we determined to love as Jesus loved, with no strings attached, no ulterior motives, just operating with the heart of a servant, loving and forgiving with reckless abandon? Water jar number 5, what if we had an epiphany? What if we finally realized, like we talked about recently, that we are the beloved, that we are the apple of God's eye, that our own epiphany might be that realization that, or this picture of God taking out God's wallet and flipping to your picture and saying, look at her, she's my favorite, and he's my favorite. What an epiphany. And water jar number 6, vision. That's what may happen if we allow Jesus to turn those first 5 into fine wine. Vision. After focusing on hope and joy and peace and love and realization that we are the beloved, what if we ask God to give us a vision? A vision for our personal lives and a vision for our church. A vision that we can call our own. A vision that we can check our progress against a year from now or 2 years from now. A vision that will communicate to ourselves individually and as a church, that will communicate to others what we are about, where we are going, and how we're going to get there. At the end of the day, may we know in our heart of hearts that like those 6 stone water jars, we are not destined to stay ordinary. We were created for a much higher purpose, and we need only the touch of Jesus to realize that full potential. Thanks be to God.